The FBI on Friday released a summary report of its probe into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, as well as the notes from Clinton's July 2nd interview with agents. The documents reveal that the former Secretary of State could not recall any briefing or training by the State Department related to the retention of federal records or handling classified information. Mrs. Clinton also told the FBI that she did not recall receiving any emails she thought should not be on an unclassified system. The FBI notes that it was unable to track down all of the devices used by Clinton, making it impossible to know for sure whether her emails were hacked. Tom Fitton is the president of the watchdog group Judicial Watch and author of the new book, Clean House: Exposing Our Government's Secrets and Lies. Welcome, Mr. Fitton.
Thank you, Paul.
So you now have looked at the FBI report, as have I, and what's your biggest takeaway?
Well, Mrs. Clinton's remarkable lack of memory. 30 to 40 times she says, "I don't recall." At one point, she blames the concussion she had near the end of her term with perhaps her inability to recall briefings she should have received about whether or not she could be taking government records with her when she left office. She had a BlackBerry device that she kept in a sensitive part of the State Department where BlackBerry and other computer devices like that are banned because that's where classified information is created, used, and discussed. And then she blames everyone else in the State Department for the classified mishandling of documents, saying, well, if they're on my system, you know, I was relying on other people not to send me bad material that was classified.
Right.
But she admits she was a principal who should have known about the handling classified information and recognizing it even if it wasn't marked.
I'll tell you one thing that stood out to me is that there's a record in there that Colin Powell warned her in an email at the beginning of her term that if she wasn't careful and if she used the personal email, all of what she sent could become federal records subject to the Federal Records Act. And instead of, sort of saying, okay, I better go on to not use my private server, she went on to use her private server despite the warning.
Well, and not only that, but Powell seems to suggest don't tell anyone about it because if they find out about it, they're certainly going to point out that they're government records. And boy, if that is an incentive for her and explains why she didn't tell anyone about it outside the State Department, frankly, it looks like she didn't tell too many people about it inside the State Department because, according to the FBI, even her closest aides didn't know about the private server until it became public. And it's unbelievable. And then, but the other big thing is that after the email scandal was broken by the New York Times, her emails were deleted.
Right.
And there was a meeting with her lawyer, David Kendall, between that involved the person who deleted the emails, whose name we don't know, and David Kendall. And they were asked about what went on at that meeting, and attorney-client privilege was cited, and no one got an answer.
Now, there's also, the report says, 17,448 work-related emails that she and her lawyers did not turn over to the State Department. Are those the emails that, in fact, you have been trying to get a hold of in your Federal Freedom of Information Act requests?
Yeah, that's curious because now, you know, it answers a question perhaps because we've been told there are 14,900 emails sent or received that she didn't turn over.
Yeah, I thought I'd seen that number 15,000 or so. This is a different number. It's even more. Well,
there's a second disk that has classified material. So I'm wondering if the difference between those two numbers is the 2,000 or so on that second disk. Are there 2,000 records that are classified? That were deleted by Mrs. Clinton? It seems to suggest some of them were.
Well, and it's a suggestion we'll probably never see what was deleted, right? The FBI says we don't have access. They didn't get access to the archive server, and so they probably can never get those back.
No, they talk about the archive computer being mailed and being lost. Her having 13 devices, which is probably a world record for even in this day and age. I know we like to upgrade our devices quickly, but 13. And so much for convenience if you need 13 devices and you're going through 13 devices. And what comes across here, Paul, is that this was a pretty big operation, and they spent a lot of time moving records around. And once it became known that she had the records, removing them and deleting them, and then making sure they were really deleted. It's the FBI really blew it on this one, and a lot of the questioning avoided a lot of elephants in the room related to records retention and their obligations under law there, and the Federal Records Act and Freedom of Information Act, and the pass on the classified information is readily apparent. Mrs. Clinton thinks she's a law unto herself when it comes to classified information, and it's remarkable.
And the purpose of this, in your view, and we don't have a lot of time here, was to disguise what emails, make sure that the public would not see any communication she might have had with the Clinton Foundation, for example, and politically related emails.
You know, there's this big lie, I think, in Washington, or a big falsehood, that the cover-up is worse than the crime. There's usually something to cover up, and we're seeing in these email releases, she didn't want access to any of her personal emails because they documented, you know, Benghazi guilty knowledge and these pay-to-play connections with the foundation, for sure.
Finally, Tom, how many more emails do you think will come out here between now and the election?
Oh, I think several thousand. The government's going to have to tell us in the middle of September when are we going to get these 14,900, evidently, that the FBI recovered. So they'll be coming out over the next few months, and it's just a question of how quickly the courts force the government to move and the Obama administration to move.
All right. Thank you for being here.